I've always said that this show, the podcast in particular, not so much the radio show, but the podcast, is really about making sure that Ben has a record of me. I know you, the audience, you come along with me on this journey, and I greatly appreciate that. I hope you know that. But really, this show is about Ben, about making sure that he knows who I am, why I think the way I do, what I believe, what I want, what I hope for. I had been kind of late in life. I mean, I was 45. When he graduates from high school, I'll be 64. And I see a lot of obituaries of guys that are passing at 61 and 62 and even 58. And it makes me think about the record I want to leave for him. Because of that, this show has always been about making sure that Ben has that record. I know in the future, the way things are going, most of my thinking and most of my way of thought will be considered quaint and perhaps even offensive in 100 years. Who knows? Might even think I'm a Philistine, you know. But I spend a lot of time studying the past, and one of the things that I love most about studying the past is getting into the thought processes, the reasons why people think the way that they did, and understanding them not as figures in history, but as people with thoughts and emotions and feelings, and getting to know those, I think, is very valuable, very beneficial when it comes to studying. And I'm hoping that maybe someday Ben, his children, his grandchildren will be able to look at this and see who I was. And maybe, who knows, find some benefit to it, find some value in it, and understand that I'm just not some person on a page in a book somewhere. I was a real person. I really existed, and I really had thoughts and feelings and emotions, and I really, like them, have conflicts. I wasn't expecting to have conflict, I guess, with Ben. I think I've mentioned over the past few weeks, I was talking to somebody yesterday, Bill, about it. You know, Ben's having some issues with school. He doesn't like a class. And he went from loving school to the third quarter of this year, like that, hating school. And it's all because of one class. He doesn't like the class. And his issue with the class is, quote, makes me feel uncomfortable, unquote. And I understand that. Look, I was a bit of a geek in school and a nerd and band geek and all that. And there were lessons that I should have learned at much younger age about how to do things. I mean, it sounds simple, but you know, how to wash your face, how to hygiene, basic hygiene things, not to mention behavioral things. You know, how do you talk to a girl? How do you do this? How do you do that? Things that I should have learned at a much younger age that I didn't. I don't really know why I didn't. I have my suppositions as to why I didn't, but I didn't. And it wasn't until years later that I began to learn things that I should have learned at a much younger age. And I've said this to Ben all the time. I've said, Ben, you need to learn from my mistakes. That's why I'm here, to make your life easier so that you don't have to go through some of the things that I had to go through. And I think he understands that. But at the same time, he is a very sensitive young man. He's 11. He'll turn 12 in July. And there's still enough of the little boy in him to be enjoyable. But I'm starting to see the preteen, the teenager that, we all go there. We've all been there. And if you've had kids, you know this. When I married Cammie, I had 4 stepdaughters, all of whom at that point were teenagers or right on the verge of being a teenager. And I didn't really get to have any impact in their development personality-wise. They don't really have anything of me. But Ben, of course, I've been there since day one. And it kind of sometimes surprises me how quickly he's growing up. It scares me a little bit how quickly he's growing up. And at the same time, it makes me, I don't know, I'm happy about it, but at the same time, I'm realizing that inevitably time moves forward. And as he begins to develop his personality, as he begins to become who he's going to become, I wonder sometimes about whether my influence will still be the predominant influence. What does all this have to do with anything? I hear you saying. You'll notice that the camera is off today. I can't be on camera today. I'm sorry. That view that you see if you're watching the video, that is kind of where I live. If you're looking at the picture, I lived to the left of the screen, about a mile to the left of the screen. That is Plausibly, Washington, and that's what it looks like right now. Live webcam. It's kind of a dark day. It's kind of a dreary day. Washington, springtime. It's going to rain. And as we got ready to go to school this morning, and one of the things we do is we walk to the bus stop together. He rides the bus, but he doesn't want to. He wants to ride to school. When he was in elementary school, that's 1.5 miles away. That was one thing. Now he goes to the middle school, which is 8 miles away. And believe me, that 8 miles, as you're looking at that camera, by the way, it's about 0.5 mile right behind that camera. That 8 miles is not in a direct line. There's no bridge across there. So you have to go all the way around Liberty Bay, and you have to, it's some of the busiest, most heavily trafficked streets in our area. It takes about 30 minutes each way. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. And with gas being what it is, no, dude, you got to ride the bus. You got to face your fears. As we were leaving this morning to go, and one of the things that we do, we walk to the bus, as I said, and then I go on my morning walk. I usually walk for at least a half an hour, more often between 45 minutes and an hour, depending on what I'm listening to on the podcast list or how I'm feeling, whether my feet are holding up. I try to get at least 6,000 or so steps. It's good for me. It clears my mind. It gets my blood pumping. It's a good thing. But as we were getting ready to leave, he says to me, I'm taking my mask with me, but I don't think I'm going to wear it today. Now look, we've had this conversation for 2 freaking years about masks. 2 years ago, Ben hated masks. I hated masks. We all hated masks. We all know this. But somehow or another, in the past few weeks, Ben has been one of those people that, and we let him decide for himself when the mask mandate was lifted, what do you want to do? Do you want to wear it? Do you not want to wear it? He wanted to wear it on the bus, but not at school, which is fine. If you really want to do that, then it's not worth the argument. And I said to him, as he said that this morning, I said, good. And then I said, because masks don't work anyway. And he said, what do you mean? Ben, if masks worked, then why aren't they working? Why didn't they work? It's the same with vaccinations. If vaccinations worked, why didn't they work? And I was kind of taken back by his response. He argued with me. And this may very well be the first argument of any substance that Ben and I have ever had. We've argued before about you're going to bed. I don't want to go to bed. You're going to school. I don't want to go to school. I'm talking about substantive things. He said, no, Dad, masks do work. So I said, well, let's talk about this. Let's go through, the actuality of it. Let's talk about it. Let's think about things. I said, because that's what I want you to do, Ben. More than anything else, I want you to think for yourself. And Ben said to me, Dad, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's making me uncomfortable. I don't know how to react to that. I don't want to make my son uncomfortable. That's not what I want to do. But at the same time, I think it's important that he learn to think for himself. But how do you push that with an 11-year-old and say, dude, you have to think. You have to consider these things. But he shuts down. When he's pushed into something like that, he tends to really just shut down. He doesn't want to talk about it. And I'm not going to say he ostriches it. He doesn't put his head in the sand, but he doesn't want to talk about those things. And if he doesn't want to talk about it, he's not going to talk about it. You cannot get it out of him. It took months to get some things out of him that were bothering him before. And this whole thing with health class, it took weeks to get us to say to him, get him to say to us, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And we still don't know why. I have no idea why. And of course, tomorrow starts parent-teacher conferences, and the one teacher who is not having parent-teacher conferences is the one teacher I actually feel like I need to talk to. A couple of weeks, he'll be done with that class, and he'll never have to take it again, and he's moving on to something he wants to do, art, and he'll be happy again, I hope. But I got to tell you, it kind of really took me aback this morning when my son said to me, Dad, this conversation, which I think is about thinking, makes me uncomfortable. He obviously thinks it's about me criticizing him for thinking that masks work, and that's not what I intended. What I intended was I want him to think for himself. If you think that masks work, and you've reasoned it out in your head that they work, and you can deal with any logical challenges to that, then God bless you. But if not, then I would rather have you learn to think, Ben. This is what this show is about, learning to think for yourself. Don't take things at face value. Don't take anything I say at face value. Do the research, do the work, do the understanding. But for the first time in 11 and a half years this morning, my son said to me that he doesn't really want to do that. He doesn't want to think. It makes him uncomfortable. I got to tell you, of all the things that scare me, that might be the scariest. And it really has me concerned today. Since this show, Ben, is about you, I want you to know that's all I'm ever trying to teach you, to think for yourself. Whatever decision you make is your decision. All I'm asking is that you think about things. I don't care if you wear a mask or not. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. I don't care. But make sure you know why you're doing it. And always understand that I love you.